I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. This week, do you want a federal election this fall?
It's best to just stay the course for now. Maybe next year, maybe next fall.
I don't think the timing's perfect with the pandemic, but if it was my choice, most definitely.
It would be very costly, and I'm not sure that people will make decisions based on the right facts.
Yes, because change is good.
But first, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has prorogued Parliament, which essentially terminates the last parliamentary session. There will be a reboot in late September in the form of a throne speech, which will outline the federal government's future plans. Prorogation also kills any bills on the way to becoming law and shuts down any work that's done by committees. This has drawn much criticism from opposition MPs, especially those who are sitting on the Parliamentary Ethics Committee, which is investigating the We Charity contract. So, what do you think about the parliamentary pause? Our question.
How do you feel about Parliament being prorogued?
I'm a little bit frustrated. I mean, it doesn't strike me as being a good time for anybody to be prorogued in any way. So,
Why do you think that?
well, there's a lot happening right now. Apparently, there's a pandemic and there's, a lot of economic peril. So I'm not sure that this is the wisest way to approach it, by having government rest or go idle.
They got to get back to work if that's the case, for sure. I mean, there's so much going on right now. There's a lot of topics that need to be addressed, for sure. So no, I don't agree with them not working right now, for sure. No, they should be back, absolutely.
Maybe there is an element that he wants to change the subject or something like that. Tired of answering the questions about the We scandal or whatever. But I mean, I think it's forgivable. I don't really think it's a big deal. Basically, it'll be fine.
I think there are probably a few things that we need to be doing right now, so I'd rather that they were not prorogued.
What do you feel they're missing out on?
Well, the fact that we're all wearing masks right now might be one of those topics. The economy, there's a whole lot of topics that need to be dealt with.
I think it's just a ploy by the current government to avoid the investigation by parliamentary committee on the We scandal.
If other businesses can be open, I don't understand why Parliament can't.
So you feel they should be continuing their work?
I think they're just protecting the higher-ups.
I think it would be better if they were, but, like Harper, Trudeau wants to avoid being held accountable. So I don't approve, but it happens with both the Harper and Trudeau.
I don't think it's really fair, to be honest with you. I just don't think that they should do that to our people, like the way they, I just not trusty at all.
So you don't think they should be shut down?
No, absolutely not. That's just like me coming to work if I shut down.
I disagree with that being a thing. I think, especially now, given off my previous answer, it's probably a very good time for members of Parliament to be very active and having definitely a lot of discussions. There's tons going on. I would love to see people that their life is analyzing and how to make our society better, working fully at this time. I mean, we're working as much as we can.
Justin Trudeau, one of his campaign promises was that he would not prorogue Parliament unnecessarily, and by doing so, I think it's a stall tactic to defer away from the We scandal and some of the other, the SNCN-Lavalin issues. And so I think it's a waste of time where they could be sitting and be passing effective laws, and right now we're just sitting on our hands and just wasting taxpayers' money.
We do need our government to still run and function, but at the same time, with the pandemic that's happening, we still need to figure out how we're going to go ahead and function with that happening. So, I think that, it might be good to take the time and figure out how we're going to organize with what's happening in the world. But at the same time, the clock's running out before we need to actually, get started again, get rolling.
That's not good. because obviously there's a lot of things that are undone and a lot of strings that are untied that need to be taken care of. So I think that they should either have taken care of business literally before they left or not gone away until everything was done.
I think they need the time to get their thoughts together. I think that most people are feeling things are changing too quickly, and I think they needed to step back perhaps and as a group look at how we're going to move forward.
Yeah, I guess it seems like could be a bit of a cover-up from with the whole WE scandal and all that kind of stuff going on, but as long as they get their I guess act sorted out and come back and are ready to get back to business when they do come back, then I'll wait and see how that turns out.
Disgusted. Plain and simple. He actually said, campaigning, that he wouldn't do what Harper did, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's avoiding everything.
Honestly, I think at the time that was probably a good call. Having a bunch of people in one room together obviously is, again, what the government is telling people not to do. So as leaders of the country, they should be following, obviously, the policies in place.
I don't know if that's a good idea when there's a pandemic on the go and financial issues and all that sort of stuff, job opportunities being lost and because of, slow down the government. But yeah, I'm a little kind of on the fence about that one.
Don't like it. Don't like prorogue. They should deal with the issues right on the bat. I don't like proroguing and postponing things. Deal with it now.
I think he's made the right decision there. He has to give it, he's, with the finance minister stepping down, he had to give themselves a chance to come up with how us as a government or as a country can go forward now after everything that's happened and with COVID. And then if people aren't happy with that at that stage in September when he does the throne speech, well, then someone there is going to call an election, or will have to, if they don't trust that that's the right way forward.
As I mentioned earlier, before prorogation, the Parliamentary Ethics Committee was interviewing everyone from the Prime Minister down about the federal government's involvement in awarding the WE charity with a contract to manage a $900 million student grant program. But things started to go awry when opposition MPs started to investigate what they felt was a close personal relationship between the Trudeau and Morneau families and the WE charity. It also emerged this summer that the Prime Minister's mother and brother were both paid to speak at several WE Day events. So, what do you think about this situation? Our question.
How has the WE controversy affected your trust in the federal government?
It's tainted it, obviously, but you know what? We're in a crisis situation and there's a lot of things going on. I think they need to look at things 360 degrees and make some better decisions on that.
Honestly, I wasn't really a fan of to the Trudeau government to begin with, and now that this whole scandal's coming out, it's made me less of a fan of him, and it's been scandal after scandal with this guy, so I don't know. He doesn't have my vote, that's for sure.
Yeah, it erodes it a little bit. Hopefully they learn from it and don't repeat this kind of behavior going forward. So I still support the government, what their overall platform and what they're doing. But definitely that kind of behavior can't be repeated.
Not at all. I've been involved in volunteer organizations, and I know how hard it is to direct volunteers, and I think there would be very few organizations qualified to take on a lot of volunteers, and so it takes special management, and I understand them doing it, and I don't think it was right, but it doesn't affect my thinking.
It was discouraging, to say the least. I think they probably could have handled it a lot better. the finance minister and the Trudeau, well, he should have stepped away from it when decisions were being made about it. And it should have been done the proper way with, when they put out asking different companies to take care of those things. I think we probably was the better because of the young people that are there, but it just was not handled the way it should have been overall.
Zero trust in this government right from the get-go. I mean, ethics scandals, he fired ministers, the RCMP wanted to investigate, because of cabinet secrecy, I have no time for this government.
Very little, really. Yeah. So, no, it doesn't affect my perception of the federal government at all.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily affected my trust personally. I think that, that they've been really good at making sure that as a country that we've all kind of come together and that we all feel secure doing, following policies and protocols.
Yeah, that got a little shaky, I gotta admit. Yeah, I thought that was handled a little bit too lax. I think it could have been a little bit more on the ball with that one.
Well, if it was something that it was supposed to be a volunteer thing and not so much paid for, I have an issue with that for sure. Because people did get paid for something that the money was supposed to be put in for some good.
It didn't. I don't know a lot about we, but I do believe Trudeau was doing the best job he can, and my trust is not affected in one bit.
It reflects badly on the opposition party, I think, for not sitting down with them and trying to find a better solution, instead of, I really think it was a political move, and I don't think it had to go as far as it did. Personally, I think they should have got together with the opposition, and it's sad when any charity has to close or has, has to be tainted.
Well, it's certainly going to change my outlook on voting, that's for sure. It's just a trust issue where people rely on certain role models to make things work, right? And when you trust somebody to make that happen, and then coming back to say, I don't know this, I don't know that, that's just, it's just mistrusting.
I'm a very socialist type of person myself, but I've always been wholly disappointed with parts of the NDP, parts of the Liberals, and then the Conservatives as well. So hearing that doesn't surprise me, so it doesn't help my opinion, but it doesn't change it necessarily.
If this issue raises the possibility that the government can't be trusted, indeed, that's something that should be dealt with, but I'm not sure that hijacking, the government's mandate or Parliament's time to deal with that when there is so much important other work going on is the best way to approach things right now.
Look, a lot of governments commit scandals, and I think compared to the previous Harper government, no difference. I'm somewhat impartial. I don't think it's going to really impact my decision on how I feel about the current government, and whether that'll influence my vote should an election be called.
A little bit, yeah. It's unfortunately, there's not a lot of trust with whatever government's in power. Unfortunately, when you see things like this, it just doesn't add to. It adds to the, my skepticism. So yes, I don't trust the government.
I haven't heard too many people, really disturbed about it, to be honest. It's not as big a deal as some would like it to be, like maybe like the Conservatives, for example. And I'm not a Liberal supporter. I'm actually an NDP supporter, so I'm not like a diehard fan of Trudeau at all, but certainly better than Conservatives. That's what I would say.
I don't think there's any actual corruption on the part of Trudeau or Morneau, but the appearances are not good. And I think it was an unforced error.
In 2011, the number of seats in Parliament was increased to 338. What number was it previously? 256, 277, 308.
308. Gonna go with C, 308.
277.
256.
I'm going to go with 308. 308.
The answer is 308.
308.
308.
308.
It's 308.
Yeah!
Before 2011, the number of seats in the House of Commons was 308. The Constitution of Canada requires that the number of seats in the House of Commons be recalculated and the boundaries of federal electoral districts be reviewed after each 10-year census to reflect changes and movements in Canada's population. This process is known as the redistribution of federal electoral districts. Under the Fair Representation Act, 30 new seats were added to the House of Commons, with 15 additional seats for Ontario, 3 for Quebec, 6 for British Columbia, and 6 for Alberta, bringing the total number of seats in the House of Commons to 338.
Canada is, of course, run by a minority government. But if a new throne speech is rejected this fall by a larger number of opposition MPs than those who sit in government, then Canadians will be headed for another federal election. An election roughly a year after the last one, let alone during a pandemic, may not be what a lot of people want. But there are those who feel an election is just what we need. So what do you think? Our question.
Do you want a federal election this fall?
Should there be a fall election? Absolutely not. I think they've got some very wise people in government, all parties of government, and we've just come through one harrowing 6 months, and it's going to take us a long time to come out of it. And to just go to an election just for the sake of it, I think we're all going to get a big shock in the fall, whether it be tourism, whether it be people with the lower wages. There's just not going to be the money there for those people. Now we've got to get through the winter, and I think collectively they've got some great minds there. They should all work together and bring us through it, but definitely no fall election. No, I don't think so.
Definitely not. I think we got more things to do with our money.
Yes, I would say yes. I don't think the timing's perfect with the pandemic, but if it was my choice, most definitely.
With everything going on, I don't know if it would be the best thing, especially if they can make it, safer. I think that might be good. If it's something that can be done completely online, for example, I think that might be a better option to do. But, people coming to ballot, to voting stations and everything like that, I think goes against a lot of the policies that the federal government has put in place to help flatten the curve.
Probably the sooner the better, since we do have a new leader now, the Progressives and test the waters. Yeah, sure, why not?
Well, I couldn't care less either way, but I don't want one, no. But if there's one there, I'll vote, yes.
People may not vote for the right reasons, because that kind of, the Trudeau government was in power when it happened, so puts them in a bad situation, I think, You can't win no matter what you do in a situation like this. Whether you borrow a whole bunch of money to help people. You don't borrow a whole bunch of money to help people. You open up the economy to help the businesses. People get sick.
Yes, because change is good.
I would think so, just because of recent events with what's happening with Trudeau and, awarding grants and et cetera to different companies that he's related to in some way or another. So, yeah, I think so. He may get reelected, but in fairness, I think there should be absolutely an election.
I do not want a federal election this fall. The cost, the expense of going through an election is just so unnecessary, especially when those funds could be resourced to during this pandemic to really necessary places, issues, and people.
We don't need one if the government is willing to cooperate with the opposition parties, but so if there's a federal election, it will be because the government has decided to trigger one by putting out a throne speech that the opposition will find unacceptable.
Yes, I think so. I think given everything that's happened in the world recently and seeing politicians kind of under stress in a very difficult time, actually has caused a lot of people to be more aware of what we're doing. So I think an election would be really good because people are more aware, have more time, to think and be critical of what's going on.
I would prefer if there wasn't a federal election this fall, just because I think everybody right now is already very stressed with everything that's happening in the world. Adding an election on top of that is probably just going to add too much stress in the lives of Canadians.
The minority governments usually last about 2 years on average, or maybe a little less. I think it would be too soon, and I honestly don't think that they're going to vote down the government. I don't think there's enough opposition votes to do that. Maybe I think somebody was threatening that, the Bloc, but I don't know that they're ready, especially with the pandemic and everything. You know, it's best to just stay the course for now. Maybe next year, maybe next fall.
Because I think what it would mean would result in about 2 months of politicians focusing on the election as opposed to trying to deal with rather pressing needs that the country has.
No, I don't. I think it'd be just too soon. I think we need to wait until this pandemic, we're past this pandemic, and the dust settles, and then we can assess whether this current government is fit to rule.
I think there has to be one. I just think it's bad timing. Because like coronavirus, everything, I don't think everyone's going to get the proper chance that they can get to like broadcast themselves.
Possibly, if it could do us better. I don't think anyone's really happy with the situation going on right now.
No, I don't. I would rather not. I'm happy with the government as is, but they just have to refocus and I guess reshuffle a few things and figure out how to better spend the money towards where the focus is needed. I think that's kind of the objective I would like to see them focus on.
It would be very costly, and I'm not sure that people will make decisions based on the right facts. So I think we need some time.
Although there seems to be a slight rise in COVID-19 cases in certain parts of Canada, there is still no comparison to what's going on south of the border. Travel restrictions remain in place at all Canadian border crossings, which does have a negative effect on both the Canadian and U.S. economies, especially when it comes to tourism. So we sent our cameras out to ask Canadians when they think it will be safe enough to open up the gates once again. Our question:
how long should the Canadian border remain closed because of COVID-19?
Well, that's actually a bigger deal. I mean, the U.S. has completely mishandled this thing. It's a disaster, to use Trump's own favorite word. It really is a disaster. I mean, the numbers don't lie. They're out of control down there. And if we start to just reopen the border back how it normally is, and you get the free flow of tourism, and they're just going to ramp up the numbers here. And I think we've done a great job. Why undo that? You know, I understand there is a hit for that, but there's still a lot of business still being conducted. It's just, I think, the tourism aspect, right? I mean, there's still transport of goods, stuff like that happening. So I'd say keep it on until things get into better shape, because we don't want to lose ground because of the screw up that happened down there.
I think until the U.S. gets their act together, I wouldn't be comfortable at opening the borders until we're sure that the infection rate goes down to a level that it's actually manageable. Yeah, so if the government decides to keep it closed until the end of the year or thereafter, then I'll trust their assessment.
I say about another year.
Why?
Just to be safe, be on the safe side, just protect the people.
You think that's enough time?
Depending how long it gets. If it stays like this, maybe a year, maybe two, not anytime soon.
I believe it should stay closed until we know for sure that everything's put in place for the safety of everybody. And until that is taken place, as far as the U.S. is concerned, they haven't shown any polls that there's any trust there that we can go back and forth from one border to another. So until that is put in place, I think we should wait.
Probably until there's a vaccine. I feel conflicted. I'm an American, so I have a lot of family on the other side, but just for the safety of Canadians, until numbers are similar in both countries, it's probably safest to keep it closed.
I think it should close indefinitely. If you are talking about the border between Canada and your south neighbor, the United States, I feel as before they're able to make things under control, I think it should close indefinitely, just for the safety of Canadian.
I think that's going to depend more on what happens with COVID. And that, as I think we all know, is a direction we haven't been before. So we all have to wait and see. Nobody's got the answers because it hasn't happened yet.
I think until the Americans can control COVID-19 in their country, it should remain closed. At the moment, they've not, and it looks like until a vaccine comes or until if there's a new government over there. But yeah, it should remain closed for now. Makes us feel safer, though.
I mean, for safety reasons, I do support it being closed for longer, but at the same time, for our economy, we benefit so much from it that it's really causing more damage. So I don't know, it's tough to say.
I guess the United States is pretty risky at the moment with a lot of cases going through. So that can be reassessed, or people coming through the United States. But in terms of other countries that are low risk, I think that could open up sooner.
Well, I'd like to see the numbers reduced in the United States before I would feel comfortable with it opening. It's a great inconvenience for everyone, but there's no control down there, so I think we would all be in jeopardy if it was open.
As long as it keeps it safe to us, I think it should be closed, especially for the kids. That's the most important right now.
Depends until COVID gets under control, and the way it is in the States right now, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So I would say basically until it's under control, until we're comfortable with it.
Really and truly, I think until most countries get it not completely under control, but they get it mostly under control and flatten their own curves, I think it really should stay closed, especially, for example, to the States where they're having currently obviously a lot of issues with cases, thousands a day.
General travel back and forth. Actually, I'd like to have it open earlier on a very selfish basis because I have a place in Florida, but I'm also pragmatic about it. So,
unless they have special checks, temperature checks and all this kind of stuff, if that's done, open it. But if they're coming back and forth without checks and without proper protocol, don't open it.
I think the border should stay closed. I think we're in a perfect country that enables it, that they can keep it closed. I know they're a great partner to us and have been for many, many years, but as it stands today, it's certainly a second question. We certainly have to second guess ourselves if we want to open it, that's for sure.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments or questions about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.